Dust motes danced in the sparse light. Asher Vance moved through the apartment, a ghost in his own sanctuary. Sunlight, thin and pale, cut through the grime on the windows, illuminating the stillness. Every surface held books. Stacks rose from the floor. Shelves sagged under their weight. The air hung heavy with the scent of old paper, a dry, forgotten smell. No sound broke the quiet, only the soft rustle of his worn sweater, the whisper of denim against denim as he moved. His hands, slender and strong, reached for a volume on a high shelf. They knew the weight of each book, the texture of every cover. He pulled down a collection of faded journals, their spines cracked, their pages brittle at the edges. His gray eyes, sharp and intense, scanned the titles, then the dates. This was his work, preservation, a quiet comfort in a world defined by its absence of noise. He carried the journals to a small, cleared space on a table. His movements were precise. He sat. The chair made no sound. He opened the first journal. The pages crinkled, a sound barely audible, swallowed by the silence. He turned them one by one, a reverence in his touch. He sought no specific knowledge, only to ensure nothing was lost. Then he found it, not a journal, but a loose collection of unbound sheets tucked deep within the last volume. They felt different, newer paper. His fingers traced the faded ink. The handwriting was tight, urgent. Professor Kale. The name meant nothing to him. He read. The words were a jumble at first. Equations, diagrams, then phrases emerged. Asterisk sonic nullification. Asterisk asterisk frequency inversion, asterisk asterisk anti-sound, asterisk. His breath hitched. A cold knot tightened in his stomach. He read on, his eyes devouring the lines. The satellite array, a network designed not to transmit but to absorb, to cancel. A world unmade by sound, remade by its inverse. Pages trembled in his hands. He felt the dread settle deep in his bones. This was not preservation. This was a challenge, a direct assault on the silence that had become the world. His world. He looked around the room, the towering walls of books, his carefully constructed peace. The thought of stepping outside, of facing the truth of Kale's desperate theories made his skin prickle. His mind raced, the resonance, their unseen presence, the profound quiet they enforced. He knew their power. He had seen its aftermath, shattered glass, pulverized concrete, all the relics of a world that once dared to be loud. He had chosen silence. He had chosen survival. This was something else, a demand, a terrible, impossible hope. A faint hum vibrated through the floorboards, almost imperceptible. A low thrum that hadn't been there moments ago. It was not a sound. It was a pressure, a tightening in the air. His gaze darted to the grimy window. The world outside remained still. But he felt it, a subtle shift, as if the unseen architects of silence had turned their attention. As if they sensed the tremor of his thoughts, the nascent disturbance in his carefully cultivated quiet. He clutched the notes. His fingers dug into the paper. The safety of his apartment, of his silent routine, felt like a fragile shell. It was a lie, a temporary reprieve. He could not unread the words. He could not unthink the implications. Humanity. The word echoed in the vast silence of his mind. He was just one man, one quiet man. He stood. The chair scraped softly on the floor. He ignored the sound. He looked at the door. It was a terrible choice, a final choice. He took a single step away from the table, away from the comforting weight of his books, towards the door. The hum deepened. The pressure in the air grew. Asher's hand paused on the cold steel of the apartment door. The silence inside his sanctuary had been a comfort, a cocoon woven from the absence of sound, but it had also become a cage. He had spent months sifting through Kale's initial notes, a ghost in a library of forgotten knowledge. Now the paper-thin clues demanded action. He adjusted the satchel on his shoulder, the weight of it a dull ache against his collarbone. Kale's fragmented theories about the resonance. The satellite dish, the whispers of a solution, they were all out there. He took a breath, shallow and held. The air in the stairwell was stale, heavy with the dust of ages. He pushed the door open, a slow, deliberate movement that made no sound. The street swallowed him whole. Havenwood was a graveyard of concrete and steel. Shattered glass glittered under the bruised sky, a million dangerous eyes. Rust-streaked vehicles lay overturned, their tires flat, their windows gaping. Skeletal buildings clawed at the gray. The silence was absolute, a crushing weight that pressed against his eardrums. It was not the peaceful quiet of his apartment, but a profound, unnatural stillness, broken only by the almost imperceptible pressure in the air, the distant, subliminal hum that was the resonance breath. A faint scent of decay, damp concrete, and something metallic hung heavy. Every step was a calculation. His boots, soft-soled, found purchase on cracked pavement. Avoiding the crunch of loose debris, his gray eyes scanned, ceaseless, missing nothing. He moved low, hugging the shadow of a collapsed storefront. A flicker of movement caught his eye across the street near the husk of a pharmacy. Small, agile, he froze, melting into the deeper shadows. A child, no older than 8, patched clothes, faded and worn, clung to a wiry frame. Her hair, a tangled mass, fell into sharp, intelligent eyes that darted, observed, assessed. She moved with an unnerving quietness, a natural predator in this silent world, her small hands clutching a worn sketchbook and a pencil stub. She was scavenging, sifting through a pile of what looked like discarded medical supplies. Asher watched. He saw her hesitate, her head cocked, listening to the silence. She was aware of the hum too, she understood. A shared understanding, a language unspoken. He made a decision. He pushed off the wall, a slow, deliberate emergence from the shadows. He raised a hand, palm open, a universal sign of peace. Juno froze, her eyes, wide and wary, fixed on him. She did not bolt, she watched, assessing. He lowered his hand slowly, then pointed to himself, then to the north, a silent question. She nodded, a small, jerky motion. Her gaze flickered to his satchel, then back to his eyes. She understood the mission, the direction. She was looking for something, survival, a stable presence. He felt the weight of it. A new responsibility settling heavy on his shoulders. He pointed to her, then made a protective gesture, a cupped hand over an imaginary head. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of something unreadable. Then slowly she unclipped the pencil from her sketchbook. She flipped to a fresh page, scribbled quickly, then held it up. A crude drawing, a map of the city, and an X marked over the university district, a question mark beside it. He nodded. A silent partnership forged in the ruins. He gestured for her to follow, leading the way with exaggerated caution. She moved like a ghost, her small boots barely disturbing the dust. The city was a gauntlet. Every gust of wind, every settling of debris was a potential trigger. They navigated a labyrinth of overturned buses, their interiors stripped bare, their windows shattered. Asher's eyes constantly swept the air, searching for the telltale shimmer, the almost invisible distortion that announced a resonance presence. The hum in the air grew, a subtle pressure against his eardrums, a vibration in his teeth. It was closer now. They skirted a collapsed bridge, the concrete fractured like bone. A shard of glass, dislodged by a distant tremor, slid from a high window ledge. It caught the light, a slow, silent descent. Asher's heart hammered. He grabbed Juno's arm, pulling her hard into the shadow of a leaning lamppost. The glass hit the pavement, a faint asterisk tink asterisk. The air warped. The hum intensified, a sudden, violent pressure that slammed into them. A shimmering, amorphous distortion coalesced above the spot where the glass had fallen, vibrating with furious energy. It pulsed, a silent scream of pure force. A localized blast of energy ripped through the air, tearing at the lamppost, sending shrapnel of concrete and twisted metal flying. Asher shielded Juno with his body, pressing her face into his chest. The blast passed, leaving only a ringing silence, a vacuum where sound had been. The distortion faded, leaving a faint, acrid smell. Juno trembled against him. He felt her small hands clench his jacket. He looked down at her, a silent question in his eyes. She looked up, her face pale, but her eyes held a fierce light. She understood. She was a survivor. He squeezed her shoulder, a silent reassurance. They continued, the near miss sharpening their senses. The hum was constant now, a low thrum beneath the skin of the city. It felt different, not just random, but concentrated. The collapsed university archives loomed, a sprawling, broken leviathan against the skyline. What remained of its grand facade was scarred, pockmarked by unseen forces. Libraries lay in chaotic heaps, moldering paper and splintered wood piled high. Lecture halls were open to the sky, their seats long gone. The air inside was thick, cloying with the smell of damp paper, decaying organic matter, and the metallic tang of ruin. This was not just a ruin, it felt alive. The hum here was a deep, resonant throb vibrating through the very foundations of the building. It was not just in the air, it was in the stone, in the dust, in Asher's bones. A new pressure, heavier, more oppressive. He felt a prickle of unease, a cold dread that had nothing to do with the physical dangers. This was a nest. They moved deeper into a labyrinth of dark corridors. The floor was unstable, littered with debris. Asher's hand found Juno's, a silent anchor. Her grip was surprisingly firm. He saw the shift in the air, a subtle distortion, not a discrete resonant, but a pervasive, almost structural warp. The new presence. It was a larger, more stable manifestation, a source. The hum intensified, a deep, guttural vibration that made the very air feel solid. It was here. It was awake. The hum throbbed. It was a pressure in Asher's skull, a vibration in his bones. He pulled Juno closer, her small hand a warm anchor in his. The air itself seemed to shimmer, a subtle distortion that spoke of an unseen presence, vast and still. Not the darting, violent disruptions they had encountered before, but something slow, deliberate, like a predator at rest. He moved with painstaking care, his gray eyes sweeping the crumbling walls, the piles of forgotten books. The smell of damp paper and decay was thick here, a desperate internal scramble for a new solution began. The hum was no longer distant, it pressed in, a physical weight. The The structures around the dish pulsed, a low, guttural thrum that resonated in his teeth, vibrated through the cracked concrete beneath his boots. The resonants were here not just present but rooted, their forms coalescing, shimmering distortions against the bruised sky. They were drawn to the array, to the very idea of communication. His gaze swept the base of the dish, the mangled ruin of wires and circuitry. The primary modulator destroyed, a cold, crushing wave of dread washed over him. His hands, scraped and calloused, clenched. The air grew thick with ozone, the metallic tang of something alien and destructive.